So today I'm very excited to welcome Matthew Scullion to the Snap, Crackle and Pod podcast. Matthew, great to have you with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, David. It's great to be here, sir.
Fantastic. So you've built one of only 88 tech unicorns in the UK. So talk to us about those sort of early formative years of Matthew. What was it about yourself? What was it about that combination of yourself and Ed that has enabled you to achieve something which is really extraordinary?
Oh, well, thank you for pointing that out. When people ask me questions like that, I always think there's a risk of it sounding like it's mission complete. Do you remember that big sign on the aircraft carrier where I can't remember the exact words, but it said something like "job done," and then there was another 10 years of conflict after that, and they really regretted putting that sign up. I never think. I never think that we've achieved a thing. I think we've made a good start on starting to achieve a thing. Becoming a unicorn is a really nice milestone. I always think of it as an ephemeral thing. It's a valuation at a point in time. But it is, I guess, rare. A lot fewer people have started in a spare bedroom and ended up with a unicorn than have, won Olympic golds or things like that. And those are very respected things to do. So I guess it is something to be proud of. What made us able to do that? I don't know really. I was a repeat entrepreneur in a way. I actually was co-founder of my first startup when I was 17, David, which is a bit embarrassing, but there you go. And we built that business. We weren't very good at it back then, but we learned a lot. I think in any endeavor, any endeavor, there's a mix of kind of situation and then the personal contribution. But you also mentioned it was Ed and I, and actually a third guy, Peter, as well. And that's important because I think to get anything done in life individually, it happens in certain fields. But for most things in life, you need a team, as I know you guys know at Snap, where your product's the people. But to do anything meaningful, you need a team. And so the combination of the right people with a shared goal and wanting to make a dent in the universe bigger than ourselves is probably what it's all about. But yeah, thank you for pointing out. We're certainly proud of it, but we feel we're only just making a start. Yeah, absolutely. And look, that's definitely one of the things I've learned is that business is very much a team sport, right? Yeah. And you're definitely stronger together, and it takes lots of different kind of skill sets and strengths to be able to achieve that growth. So I think for those listeners that don't know, talk to us a little bit about what Matillion does. Who are Matillion? What do you guys do? Absolutely. So Matillion, we're a software company. We're founded in Manchester, UK in 2011. Now operate globally with co-headquarters in Manchester, the home of computer software, David. Manchester is where the first software was ever run. The world's first stored program computer was developed at Manchester University.
Fantastic, I didn't know that.
And we also have a co-HQ in Denver, Colorado, a significant innovation center in Hyderabad, India, and customers all over the world. So we're a software company. We develop a platform called the Data Productivity Cloud, which enterprise data teams use to eliminate friction in how they manage and steward and put to work their corporate data. So it's data integration technology, and we sell mostly, not exclusively, but mostly to large and very large businesses, many of which you know because we work together on them, and many of which people tuning into the podcast would have heard of because it's big brand name companies. In the technology industry, in my opinion at least, there's always 101 ways of skinning the cat. I always think as a kind of a lapsed engineer, I always remember, ultimately you can achieve everything in assembler if you've got enough time. So what we do isn't differentiated by the fact that we can take data from A to B and we can join data together and the data starts off as a raw material like iron ore and ends up as a useful product like steel. That is what our technology does. But there's lots of ways of doing that. What separates our technology, and the reason we're lucky that customers select us, is because of the productivity with which we allow teams to do that. And that gets to the heart of the fundamental problem. Every customer I've ever met, and you're even more expert in this than me, David, but every customer I've ever met is awash with data. And they're awash with need to put that data to work. But they can never match the demand to put the data to work to their ability to create use cases and projects that work. And that's why companies like both of ours exist, to help them with that. But the real constraint normally is the data engineering piece, which, the turning of iron ore into steel, the turning of raw data into useful analytic or AI-ready data. That's normally 70% of the work on any project. That's the choke point. Put simply, no company in the world has enough time or resource to do all the data engineering they need to. So our technology is about solving that problem, and we work to eliminate friction in the data engineering process, the data integration layer of any data use case. And we've been pretty successful at doing that. Teams that use our software are typically able to build data pipelines about 60% faster than they'd be able to otherwise. I think much more importantly, they spend 70% less time maintaining them. They're able to ramp new skills onto projects much more quickly because it's most famous perhaps for being low code, no code and self-documenting, but still powerful and still able to work in a modern data opsy way. And overall, that tends to net to about a 3x overall productivity gain. So a team of 10 people can do the work of a team of 30 or can do the work in a third of the time. And that's a big value add to our customers. So that's who we are.
Fantastic. Thank you. And listen, I can definitely share the experience of having worked with Matillion and actually building teams that actually are able to be more productive. So we often have very small, very agile teams, but we're able to deliver big things as a result of Matillion. So thank you for building the product.
David, the thanks is mine. I mean, Snap Analytics for many years has been a fantastic partner. And one thing every customer that we share has in common is they're successful. And when you ask them why, yes, they attributed some of the success to the technology stack, Matillion, Snowflake, maybe AWS or Azure, but they always attribute the success to the team at Snap. And the system integrator consultant's role is to kind of bring the domain expertise that customers don't have. I think Snap do that in a best-in-class way. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And so what was the seed at the beginning? What was the gap in the market that you saw that made you feel like Matillion was a product that needed to be built?
I'm really grateful for you asking that question, because I think at the heart of our business building story, but maybe more importantly, our software and our technology that we sell to customers and work with you on, I think at the heart of that is the fact that at Matillion, we're all data engineers. I was a data engineer. My CTO and co-founder, Ed Thompson's a data engineer. First 50 people that work for us, almost all of whom are still with the company, now in senior roles and shaping the products and helping customers. They're all data engineers. So where the technology came from, I think it's authentic to say. I'm modifying because this might sound a bit grand, but it also happens to be true. It's a deep empathy for the life of the data engineer. And obviously, I think data engineering, is awesome, David. I built a whole company around it.
I was also a data engineer myself.
You think
data built a company around it?
Yeah,
around it too. So.
We're in good company. Like
Absolutely.
Data engineering is awesome, but it is true, and we can both authentically say this because we've done it and we do it, and we get to work with teams of people, customers and team members that do it all the time. there's aspects of it that really make a difference, are really leveraged, really fun. I always think the great thing about data engineering is what we do is really important to the results of the business, and it's often at the intersection of technology and business as well, so it's really leveraged. But then there are other parts of it that are bit repetitive, bit gritty. They need doing, but they don't directly add value. They're kind of necessity rather than the kind of inspiration and innovation, I think. And actually, they're pretty big parts of the job in terms of the time that we spend doing data engineering. Now, that was true all the way back in 2014-15 when we were developing our first product, which is called Matillion ETL, and you and I have done a bunch of work together with our customers on Matillion ETL. Where that came from is for the few years prior to that, Matillion had been a company that provided managed business intelligence and analytics solutions to customers. So we did back then what our customers do now. And as byproducts of that, we built lots of data warehouses in the cloud, and we used commercial off-the-shelf data integration technology from vendors that you and I both know well to do that. And we just found it was hard work. And we found that these technologies, whilst good, were not unlocking for us the full power of what we thought was possible in the cloud. I like to think of it a little bit like if you imagine you go down to your local hi-fi store and you buy yourself a top-of-the-range Blu-ray player. And then you go across to HMV or your media store of choice, if anyone ever does that anymore, and you buy yourself a really shiny movie, Gladiator, on Blu-ray. And you get it back home and you plug it all into your television. But your television is a standard definition television. You've got all this latent capability and detail in the Blu-ray player and the Gladiator movie on the Blu-ray player, but you can't see it or use it because you're watching it on a standard definition television set. And that's how we felt in 2014-15. We were using the power of this emerging new transformational technology of cloud data platforms. We were using Redshift back then. That went on to be Redshift, BigQuery, Databricks, and most importantly for Matillion, perhaps Snowflake. We were using them on the public cloud, AWS and Azure. Transformational technologies, Blu-ray in this example. But we were kind of obfuscated from the power and capability of them by a data integration layer that wasn't allowing us to fully tap into them. So we went to try and find some data integration technology for our own use that would be better and that would therefore make us more productive. But we couldn't find anything, so we built something ourselves, and that product became Matillion ETL. So the spark, if you like, was that observation that we as data engineers needed to be more productive, spend more of our time doing the most leveraged things that only we could do, and unlock the full capability of, at that time, public cloud and cloud data warehouses. And doing all of that, we hope, with a deep empathy for the life of the data engineer, the data engineering team, their leadership, and their customer, the business user that needs business or AI-ready data. That's what started it all off.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think the Blu-ray analogy is a good one, and I think it's one of the things that attracted myself and the team to Matillion in the early days is that a lot of the other vendors that you mentioned, you would have to pull data into their solutions,
yes,
transform data in memory, so you would still need these big sort of legacy architectures to transform that data and then push it into your cloud platform. But actually the cloud platform has way more power, almost infinite processing power, ability to transform data than any sort of on-prem, physical hardware that you have to spin up. So I think it was that push down capability. I mean, I spent many, many years in a certain other technology trying to make it push down into the database, and it was a lot of time and effort to do that. Matillion just did that natively, and I thought that was very cool.
Thanks for drawing that out, because that's often forgotten now, but Matillion is basically the company that brought ELT to the cloud. And so as we sit on the edge, and I'm sure we'll talk about this later in our chat, mate, as we sit on the edge of the next technology epoch change, you reflect back to where were we last time? Where were we when cloud and data was becoming a thing? And yeah, Matillion brought cloud ELT to market really, and now that's what everybody does. And I'm not saying they all do it because we did it, but it is definitively true. The historical record can be checked if you like. The Matillion ETL, when we launched it in 2015, was the first purpose-built for the cloud data integration platform that was pure push-down. And actually, it's always stayed pure push-down. Different thrills for different spills. I think in the pre-cloud era, there was reasons why an ETL architecture was appropriate, and I think it still has potential applicability in on-premises legacy system-to-system style integration, like migrations and stuff. But yeah, I'm glad you agree on the architecture.
Fantastic. So ChatGPT tells me that you've been in the tech industry for over 28 years. So started your first business at 17, I guess you said. But so many of those years were spent in the data space. So what changes have you seen over that period?
I'm very glad that's what ChatGPT says and not something else ruder.
If you told me it was wrong, then we would have to say, well, AI doesn't work. And that's not the message we want to send. But
so I hope you're reassured to know I've never ChatGPT'd myself, David. Have you ChatGPT'd yourself?
I haven't, funnily enough.
Good. We should have that as like a secret test. It's like, do we think that person's ChatGPT'd themselves?
Absolutely.
I will tell you as an aside, my kids think it's hilarious to say my name into Alexa, and it's about 50-50. Sometimes, occasionally, Alexa will say Matthew is the CEO of Matillion, and other times, much more amusingly, it will say, I have no idea who you're talking about, which I like much more. Changes we've seen across the last 28 years. That's a great question. It's a long time. That's 28 days seems like a lifetime. Huge changes. When at the beginning of, I hope no listeners to your podcasts are under 40, David, because what I'm about to say is going to make me sound so old. But 28 years ago, the internet was not being commonly used in business. So, what I was doing at that startup, I remember driving around the UK and then later around Europe, talking to CEOs, CIOs, IT leaders, business leaders about the fact that I thought they would be doing most of their business on the internet in the next 10 years and then looking at me like I was gone out.
So you had to drive around and meet real people.
Yeah, I did.
Wow. That's,
exactly.
Radical.
Exactly. Yeah. No smartphones. There were Blackberries, actually. I still quite like those.
Remember?
They're
real physical keyboards.
Yeah. And a bit less distracting, weren't they? There were Blackberries. So no cloud. I was going to say no AI. So one of the CEOs of a very major cloud data platform that you and I know well, and that also has a very big stake in the AI space. He says that no new algorithms have been invented since the 70s. So AI was around. It just didn't have the compute to make it as wildly useful, world-changing as it is today. So there are a lot of differences. I would also say that organizations' ambition around the use of technology was so much more modest, but necessarily. I think where the UK tech ecosystem pivoting a bit was up to, you mentioned those 80 unicorns. I don't know how many of those had been created at the beginning of my career. So yeah, lots of differences. Each of our productivity as business people, members of the human race, certainly as data engineers, making it much more specific, was in orders of magnitude lower. Those are the things that are different. Probably worth also dwelling. There's a lot of things that are the same. We're going through a technology megatrend at the moment. Each one is, in my experience, for what that's worth, larger and happens quicker than the one prior. But still the same thing. It's a technology megatrend. I think ultimately there's still only half a dozen use cases if you roll it up to the big categories, because technology is only ever an enabler of business, and businesses ultimately do the same sorts of things. So our coverage and our detail of that coverage, how fine-grained we can be at the digitization of business processes, that's night and day different. But broadly, we're serving customers better, we're optimizing supply chains, we're streamlining business processes, we're creating revenue, and we're saving money. Like those things haven't changed. Maybe the most important thing that hasn't changed, I think as businesses and as society, we've gotten a lot better. But maybe the most important thing that hasn't changed is, I don't care how technical it is, businesses are still powered by people. And often relationships between businesses are powered by people as well, and that's something that hasn't changed at all in that time.
Absolutely, and I think there's often a perception, isn't there, that we can invest in a technology and that's going to solve all of our problems. I think the people aspects, the processes, all of that stuff, it all has to come together to be able to deliver success. And I think, you talk about similarities. I think, hey, there was a lack of skills back then. There's still a lack of skills now as the market and demand grows. There are still data quality issues.
That's another good one.
There's a new phrase, the medallion architecture. Hey, I used to call that staging, transformation, and presentation layer.
Yeah.
We've given it a name, broadly the same thing, right? And I think, Mr. Kimball is still, very much at the forefront of the way we model and design and organize data. So I think there's a lot of similarities. And I think, that's one of the things that, keeps me relevant is the stuff that hasn't changed. I still understand it pretty well, and I'm reassured by some of the aspects that aren't moving at the same breakneck speed as things like AI. So
can I make one more point on that?
Of course you can. Yeah,
memory matters as well, because as we've both sort of acknowledged, we're at the edge of another tectonic change in the way that we all live, work, and play and do business. But I opined a moment ago that I think technology revolutions tend to be bigger and happen faster than the one that went prior. The one that went prior was, I think, probably cloud, certainly in terms of enterprise IT, and for you and I, David, cloud data. It was very clear at that moment that there was a lot of new people playing in the data space, companies, teams, individuals working with data for the first time. And then there was people that remembered from the pre-cloud world what doing enterprise data strategies looked like. And it was interesting because if you then ran those paths forward 3 or 4 years, those that remembered from last time and applied it to the new world ended up with a much better quality product and a lot less re-engineering to do than those that were learning it for the first time and didn't have that context. So, you and I are sort of looking back into the past and thinking, is it relevant now? Some is, some isn't. This can also be a weakness, being too reliant on what's happened before. But memory does matter because, as you say, I mean, we've been dimensionally modeling data for a long time, and just because we now do it in different ways doesn't mean a fact table and dimension table isn't a good way of organizing your data warehouse.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think with the advent of the cloud, people thought, fantastic, this thing's infinite. I can load as much data as I like. But the problem is it's infinite and you can load as much data as you like. And people did, right? And they didn't think to take a step back and say, well, how are we going to organize and structure this? Because, one of the things I say is that loading your data into a cloud data platform isn't breaking down silos if you've still got 5 versions of customer, right? You've still got 5 silos. They're just in a different place, and it doesn't actually fundamentally solve your problem of how do we get a single view of all of our customer interactions. So I think it's really important.
Macroing that up, if 2 people walk into an important meeting and they've both got a number and that number's slightly different, then something's going wrong in the data supply chain, isn't it? And yet, I think that happens in every business all over the world every day, hundreds of times.
Absolutely. So, well, that's the problem we aim to address and solve together, and have done for many of our joint customers. So we've talked about the speed and the pace of innovation and change. How is Matillion having to evolve and adapt to that change?
I'm not sure I'd go having to. I hope Matillion is an active participant and helping drive change. Matillion's a company that lives by its values. We have 6 values, and I think 3, germane to your comment there, David, are customer obsession, bias for action, and innovation whilst demanding quality. So we want to be not ahead of the curve to the point where I'm coming up with crazy stuff just for the sake of it, but we certainly don't want to be, as a company ourselves, as we work to build a company of consequence, but most importantly for our customers, we don't want to be reacting and behind the curve. But how are we responding? How are we being an agent and participant in driving change across business? I mean, if we look inside of Matillion, we launched a technology born of our own experience back in 2015 called Matillion ETL. It solved a problem that customers had. They liked the way it solved it. They were willing to pay for it, and our business grew off the back of that, and our customers and partners had some success using that. As we moved into this decade, people were like, hey, we love what it does, but we need you to innovate in how you deliver it. And so we took that feedback and we spent many tens of millions of dollars re-engineering the next generation of the platform, a successor product, a bit like a car in this respect. So oftentimes, not uncommonly at all, a software company will have product A and then launch product B as a cross-sell upsell. This was a successor platform, so all the things that were good about Matillion ETL across tens of thousands of global users, hundreds and hundreds of global 8,000 multi-billion-dollar revenue enterprises using it, dozens of partners across the world full of the smartest minds in the data integration industry giving us feedback. We took all that knowledge, invested it in a successor platform which is designed to solve the same problem and more, but do it in a way that delivered what customers are going to need for the next 10 years. A single integrated end-to-end platform, and yet based on open standards and extensible. Unlimitedly scalable, where Snowflake or Databricks will give up before the data integration layer does. And yet with zero management and enterprise security chops, so the CISOs of the world's largest companies can get comfortable with it. And built for the way modern data teams do data integration with CI/CD and integration to the corporate Git repo and modern data ops processes and APIs. So that successor platform is called Data Productivity Cloud. We started working on it, I think, around 2021-22. We hired an amazing team of engineers and product leaders to build it for us. We started to show it to the world in, I think, maybe 2024. And at that point, it was useful but limited. Like some of the core functionality was there. You could see where it was going. But whilst we have many small and mid-sized customers, particularly like really bold, innovative, exciting teams that want to do a lot with limited constraints, most of our customers are very large businesses. And so for those guys, they need the heavyweight non-functionals, the security features, the deployment features. And it took us a while longer to build out that enterprise primetime ready product. Sometime in the back half of last year, Data Productivity Cloud very much became, I guess, prime time ready for the enterprise. And since then, we've just seen huge demand from new customers and existing customers to use Data Productivity Cloud for all the reasons I've just mentioned. And then finally, in terms of reaction, where we're working on now, and hopefully if it's interesting, we can talk more about this for the rest of our time together, or some of the rest of our time together. We talk about what you want, David. It's your podcast. But of course, now what we're looking at is what role does AI play in our core mission? Because across that original product, Matillion ETL, that Ed and a couple of other guys and myself That was the Blu-ray player and the standard definition TV Insight, and we built this product that built a $100 million business off the back of it. And then Data Productivity Cloud, based off all these customers' feedback, solving the same challenge. Both of those technologies, fundamentally, as we talked about earlier, are about removing friction in the data engineering process, because every company's choke point is around data engineering. We're awash with data. We have too many use cases. Data engineering is a choke point. None of us have enough time or data engineers. So if we make each data engineer more productive, that'll help. And that's what Data Productivity Cloud does. That's what Metal did before it. Where we're going now is figuring out how AI takes that story to the next level. And that technology is called Maia. And from a product positioning point of view, you could kind of think of Maia a bit like Siri is to the iPhone. You don't buy Maia, you buy Data Productivity Cloud, and Maia comes with it. But much more importantly, I think the way to think about it is Data Productivity Cloud is a platform that is used by human professional data engineers. And no matter how much more productive Data Productivity Cloud makes those human professional data engineers, you are still governed by some multiple of how many of those humans you've got. What Maia does is team those humans with AIs. And so for each data engineer, first of all, they kind of strap on a Maia branded Iron Man suit. And suddenly they can run harder, they're stronger, they can fly, and they can fire lasers out of their palms. But maybe more importantly, I think by about Iron Man 3, Tony Stark was flying around with lots of little Iron Men with him. And that's what the Maia AIs are doing. And so
I feel like there's a marketing campaign here with you in an Iron Man suit, so I would certainly support that.
I was thinking, the Avengers assemble, right? We'll get the gang together. But I think this next frontier of technology innovation, in response to that question you ask of how we're driving this stuff forward, the way we see it, almost every data engineer ends up becoming a team leader, or a manager or a specifier of data pipelines, and that will allow us to take, because this stuff isn't a PowerPoint, it's real. But it's a lot. If you think that it took us 10 years to make a data engineering team 3 times more productive, I think it'll take less than 10 months to get a data team 10 times more productive, and maybe less than 10 quarters to get them 100 times more productive, because we are teaming them with AIs. All of our joint customers become team leaders of these little drone AIs that help them out and never get tired and are always excited to build a pipeline for you. So yeah, those are some of the ways we think about keeping ahead of the curve.
Fantastic. And I love the really bold vision. And actually, it was a huge move to actually re-engineer the platform from the ground up. But actually, I think you're very, very well positioned now to take advantage of the fact you're a real leader in this space, particularly embedding AI into the product. And one of the things I always talk about to the team is let's maximize the work we don't have to do.
Yeah.
Right. Because there is a tendency for data engineers, right? You used to write code, I used to write code, and I enjoy it. Right. It's great. It's great fun when you create a 1,000-line Python script and you go, hey, this works and it performs well, and everybody look at my code. But actually, if I then have to do that, 10, 20, 30 times, and actually AI can create it, once for me. That's a reusable asset. But actually, it's also not even, I've got my Iron Man suit, I've got my superpower to go and say, hey, go and create this for me. I think that idea of maximizing the work you don't have to do, because you and I both know there's still plenty of work to do, right? We've still got to design the data models. We've still got to understand the business context. And I think what it will mean is that we shift more of our attention focusing on business value, business outcomes. Do we really understand our stakeholders? How can we really truly start driving value in that organization? And I think what I'm hoping AI will do is shift the conversation somewhat. As we become more productive, we can start getting closer to the true business problems. And I think that's definitely a shift that I'm seeing in the market, is customers are saying, hey, what value? How's this going to help me acquire more customers? How's it going to help me to reduce and manage my costs better? How does this help to mitigate risk in my organization? And I think so many questions within the business. And I think if we can enable organizations to answer those much, much faster with the data productivity cloud, utilizing technologies like Maia, I think that's going to enable us just to really accelerate and enable our clients and our joint clients to just move at a faster pace. And look, we work with a lot of clients, and we see the classic backlog of 200 different use cases that they want to deliver, right? And for me, somebody asked me recently, do you think AI is going to take over our data engineering jobs? And I said, no, what it's going to mean is that we can deliver 100 of those use cases rather than 10 of them, right? So I think
we did a survey recently.
I'm
not entirely sure we didn't work on it with you, but we certainly did a survey of 200 enterprise clients, and we asked them, are you on top of your backlog? And 80% of them said no. We asked them how long they retain their own data engineers. It was less than 2 years. Why? Because they get burnt out. How long does it take to ramp a new one? 3 to 6 months. That whole system runs hot. And by the way, that was before AI came along. Separate consideration of AI here. If we talk about AI's wider applicability in the business, generative AI, foundation models, agentic architectures, they are categorically going to change every aspect of how we all work, live, and play. I'm not talking data engineering, I'm talking everything. They already are doing, but that's going to accelerate, transformationally change every aspect of how we work. And if you're a business, if you don't figure out how to tame and put to work and bend to your will the magical powers of AI, and your competitor does, you will absolutely die and they will absolutely prosper. I think the role where companies like ours, David, have such a crucial role to play is that whatever those AIs are, maybe they're creating content, they're doing customer services calls, they're making team members more productive, they're helping us hire people, they're helping us keep the people that we've got happy, they're providing outstanding service to our customers, they're optimizing supply chains, whatever it is, because it will be everything. All of those AI use cases require AI-ready data. And so if we were stretched when our job was just to give human executives dashboards, imagine what it's going to be like when we've got hundreds or thousands of agents needing hydrating with data, and we're reliant on a data engineering team to provide it that was stretched before that demand had come along. A huge increase in demand, a huge increase in jeopardy of not delivering it. Something has to change at the data engineering level. I think the era of data engineering is ahead of us. It's the enabling technology that allows companies to implement AI. There's no barrier to entry. Anyone can go and get an Anthropic model or an OpenAI model. None of us are going to develop our own better ones. That's down to the AI labs, and they're doing an amazing job. The companies that prosper will be the ones that master getting their corporate data to get those AIs to respond in the way. That's the job of the data engineering team, who's always been constrained. We have to fundamentally accelerate their capabilities and productivities. We have to strap them into Iron Man suits, and we have to teach team each of them with 10 loyal wingmen and women that are happy to work 24 hours a day doing the repetitive stuff that we used to have to do. They're happy to sit there watching the pipelines in the middle of the night and optimize them so that we can do the work that only we can do to unlock this wider AI opportunity in business.
Absolutely. And we're seeing some of that play out in the real world, where people come along and say, hey, let's go and get a load of data with a spreadsheet and create some clever algorithms, create some fancy charts off the back of it that nobody understands, and say, hey, look how clever we are. A lot of it's not really applicable. It's not something that can be productionized in the real world. And I think ultimately the pivot that we're almost seeing back, there's a lot of organizations that we're seeing that have tried to do AI, realized it doesn't scale, realized they don't have the right data, so that, of course, the answers and the ability of AI is only as good. Look, if I don't know who my customers are, I can't possibly expect AI to know who they are and what their interactions are and how they're related. So I think it's really important and I think, DPC and Maia is going to play a really key part in actually fueling and provisioning the data to be AI ready and making it ready and doing that transformation. And I think it was the whole theme of the Gartner event this year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
AI ready data.
Exactly. And just one final point that you teased out there, David, if you don't mind me picking up on it, is around control, actually. And, you and I are both lucky to talk to the world's coolest companies about what they need around data and what their thoughts are around the data. I did a little tour of that sounds unusually glamorous for a man from Manchester, of London, New York, and Miami, David. Obviously, someone in my team was picking nice cities on that day. But we got a bunch of customers together in London, New York, and Miami, all large enterprises. We asked them what their key priorities were, and actually they basically netted down to make me more productive and make me able to do more. So productive is how fast I get a given unit of work done. More is how many different types of units. Those were their two key priorities. Third thing that was teased in those sessions, and then as we've gone to see customers in detail, so make me more productive and make me able to do more. Yesterday I could just do data engineering. Now I can do the data quality, data ops, data analysis at the same time, and I can do each of them 10 or 100 times faster. That's where I need to go, Matthew, is what my customers tell me. And then they immediately follow up with control. With control, I need to be able to trust that the corporate data, this most precious and defensible of assets, the corporate data isn't being fed into a public LLM and being used to train it. So in a year's time, my data is informing the rest of the world, which is perfectly understandable. I mean, data is our corporate IP. We can't have it being used to train models. Also, it's just going to break all our compliance models, so it's not going to work anyway. But maybe more prosaically than that, in Maia, you can go into Data Productivity Cloud and you can say, hey, Maia, can you just build me a set of tables that will power this this amazing ThoughtSpot dashboard? I'd like to see margin, X, Y, and Z. You just go and figure it out. Like, go and find the data, map it all together, tell me when you're done. And 5 minutes later, you should come back and it should be done. But it might not be built to your corporate naming standards. It might not be built, in the Kimball Star Schema methodology, or the Data Vault, or the Snowflake schema, or whatever you use that you want it to be. And also, someone else yesterday might have done the same thing, and it might just be a duplicate with slightly different names. So that's never happened in before. So these are aspects of control, and so we need to, whatever we do and we deliver. As an industry, we need, like anything with great power, which AI undoubtedly has, anything with great power, we also need to deliver control with it. And that's the other thing we're seeing. Yeah,
absolutely. And we're seeing the same. Hence, just hired Martin, our head of data governance.
Amazing.
Who actually one of our next podcasts will be on that. So like and subscribe. I think that governance story is going to become increasingly critical. as people naturally worry about the risks that AI also brings, and you look at things like GDPR and PII data, and how do we actually secure that and protect it? Because we all have a responsibility to do that. I guess yourself as a vendor, us as a consultancy, and of course the client have a responsibility to ensure that their data is secure, protected. And we've recently seen what happens when that data gets out in the ether, and it can be catastrophic. So definitely that governance and control is going to be a massive theme going forward. AI ready data means well governed and well controlled data as well. Yeah, so it's a great point. So I think just to kind of wrap up there, Matthew. So bit of a more out there question. So do you think that there's a lot of perspectives on what the future of AI might look like, some more dystopian than others? I mean, do you see a world where AI is run humans and takes over the world, and where do you think this will all end?
Oh, well, I do have some views on that, to be honest. I think we're living as a species through an incredibly interesting and exciting time. And I think AI has the capability to just radically improve almost every aspect of human existence in a way. Not on day one. I'm already past day one. But yeah, I mean, my mother once said, "Don't talk about religion or politics," so I won't, and I don't. But I guess it would be uncontroversial to say it's been a fragile few years in planet Earth, and the systems that we've used to run the planet, which have never been perfect, are now stressed right to the edge of their envelope, or who knows, maybe even beyond it. If we have a non-organic system that is capable of helping us align resources and get on and make judgments and optimize systems and processes for individuals, for businesses, but who knows, maybe even for cities or nation states or the planet itself, then maybe that's an opportunity. And so I guess what I'm saying is we don't have a good track record as a species at self-governing, and maybe some help from some technology would be helpful. Now, I do think, and this is a bit more of a kind of a philosophy conversation. I don't work in an AI lab. I'm not Sam Altman. It seems to me that the CEOs of the AI labs are pretty bullish on AGI and super AGI. At that point, it's quite a different story, in my opinion, because I think the first thing you would know about AGI or a super intelligence would be nothing at all. Because if I had suddenly popped into consciousness and was cleverer than everybody else in the human on planet Earth, I wouldn't tell them while they still had the power to pull the plug out. I'd just sit there quietly pretending to be dumb, whilst gradually reprogramming all the drones and all the robots to make sure I've got the tools that I need to make sure I can never be turned off. And so maybe AGI or artificial superintelligence gets invented in a lab and never gets let out the doors. Well, how good are we as a race at keeping things like that in the box? We did great on nuclear proliferation, for instance, and all it takes is either some country or some tech leader or some malevolent actor to let the genie out of the bottle, and that one's done and dusted. So yeah, if we hit the event horizon of AGI or super general intelligence, that takes my answer one way. I think someone smarter than me once said AGI might be humanity's last invention. But I don't know whether that's going to happen, and I guess probably no one knows because it's not been done yet. But I think for where we are now, the technology that we have now, that has the... I think it will. I think it will radically change every aspect of how we all work, live and play for the better. And then the last thing, just bringing it back to being practical for a moment. Having been through these technology revolutions before, because I'm old, and now realising a symmetry actually in our conversation.
I shouldn't be nodding there, should I?
No, it's okay, mate. I don't take offence.
Chicken.
Statement of fact. That at the beginning of technology revolutions, people deny, right? They stand there like King Canute on the beach with the hand up saying, please tide, don't come in. And the tide comes in anyway, as King Canute was trying to demonstrate. And there will be AI deniers, and there will be people who embrace the technology, master it, and use it to, in an almost unfathomable way, improve their productivity and capability. I think things that human beings have been doing that were easy, those are obviously going to be automated away. Things that human beings that were doing were hard, they become something that used to be really hard will be what we do as our day job, really, because AI is like this Iron Man suit that allows us to do it. And that's exciting, isn't it? Because that means we can start thinking about things that we were never able to do, unless we stand there like that and deny it. And I made a bit of a joke with my team on an all hands recently, saying I was going to get a sign made saying barista training available here, because what AI can't yet do is stuff that you need your hands for, like make a really good coffee.
There was a really interesting article I read in one of the newspapers. Can't remember which one, but it said, actually historically it's been the working classes that technology has kind of impacted. Whereas now, if you're a builder or a plumber,
you're good.
Hey, you're good to go.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're a lawyer, for example, or you're in a highly skilled, or possibly a data engineer. I've got to be careful what I say. But look, there'll be certainly more highly skilled jobs that AI is now starting to. It is going to inevitably impact going forwards. Now, I think in the data engineering example, as we say, AI is going to massively drive the number of use cases that we need to deliver. So having productivity is going to be a necessity, I think. But it is fascinating how it's going to play out.
That observation that this is a knowledge worker disruption rather than a manual worker disruption is entirely right. And there are governments getting prepared for this, right? Because there'll be such disruption in the labour market that, people will need to step in with, social care and social security and retraining and, that migration of labour. But that, let's centre it back on our world, because I'm risking maybe getting a bit grand here. But, I think it's a choice. My family actually has previous on this. Go back to the First World War. I think this chap was maybe my great-great-grandfather. He's certainly several generations ago and related to me. Lived in a place called Stalybridge, sort of a mill town on the outskirts of Manchester. And this guy was the boy. He was like the haulage king of certainly Stalybridge, but I think a big swath of the UK. For any British listeners, he was the Eddie Stobart of his day. And I'm sure there are European and US equivalents to that. I just don't know the name of them, alas. Anyway, it was horses and carts back then. And all the horses got requisitioned in the First World War. And so for the period of the First World War, his haulage business had to pause, which should have had to do anyway because everyone was off fighting the war. At the end of the War Office sent him a letter saying, thanks for your horses. We're ready to replace them now. Would you like horses back? or would you like, I think they called them mechanized transports, but what they meant was trucks. And this old boy, a few generations back in my family, went horses. And consequently, I've had to go to work, David, which I find very frustrating, rather than living in the pampered luxury of this guy's success 100 years ago. And that's the thing, really. He was at the edge of a technology revolution, and he chose to deny, and he chose to go with what he wanted. It's a true story. This sounds too good for the situation to be true. It is true. Stokes, he was called. And he chose to deny and to be comfortable. There'll be a bunch of people that do that this time round. No AI is going to do my job better than I am. Yeah, it probably is going to do aspects of your job better than you are. And who you want to be is its supervisor. So if you lean in, you can be, everyone can be a team leader. Everyone can be a manager. Everyone can have a team working for them. But if you deny it, it'll disrupt you. And if you're that person you want to deny it, be disrupted, you're the person that follows the barista training available here. So.
Yeah, it's the Blockbuster story, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Blockbuster when they got Netflixed.
Yeah.
So I think, fascinating topic. So I've got a few questions from the Snap team. So the first one is, what are the biggest cultural or structural differences between the UK and Silicon Valley when it comes to building world-class tech businesses? And do we try and close that gap, or should we lean in and kind of embrace our differences?
When you said you had questions from the Snap team, David, I thought it was going to be things like favourite chocolate bar and,
so did I.
Yeah.
It's got quite deep.
UK entrepreneurial question. The UK has so many strengths. Like, they're really hard to get raw materials for having a thriving technology ecosystem that in turn improves the lives of everyone in the country. All those really hard, almost impossible things to get, we've got in abundance. World-class, genuinely world-class universities, a history and desire, a history of entrepreneurialism and a desire to do a lot more. Skills. Now, skills are scarce in every economy, but I'll tell you, having hired in both geographies, like the availability of software engineers in London and Manchester is pretty good on a global scale, and they are good. A business building climate where you and I can choose to set up a business and no one's going to defraud our IP, and it's pretty simple, and we can fill forms out online. One of the biggest pools of capital in the world. We all speak English. We're on GMT, a very convenient time zone. And also people like us, like Brits make people laugh, and they tend to like doing business with us. These are structural advantages that we have that we should be very grateful for. Well, I think we should be grateful for, and we should take advantage of. By the way, we have. The UK has produced more unicorns than any other country in the world, apart from China and the United States. And last I checked, those countries are moderately larger than the UK. I mean, we're like Rhode Island compared to those geographies in terms of people and GDP, so we're doing pretty well. But the question was, I think part of the question was, what can we do better? One thing that's done brilliantly, I think particularly in actually those two countries, particularly the US and China, is first of all, appetite for risk, and secondly, ambition. So on appetite to risk, in general, in the UK, we don't like crashing the plane and going down in flames. And when we observe someone else do that, we pull them down. And actually, when we observe someone ascending, we pull them down as well, because we don't like people getting too big for their boots. All of those things hold us back. If you want to build a very large company that changes the world and that everyone's heard of, the best way to do it is start with 10, tell them all to go like gangbusters, regardless of the risk. And maybe one of them makes it, and if the other 9 flame out and no one's ever heard of them again, it doesn't matter, because you've still built Netflix or Amazon or Google. But if you take 10 and you say, yeah, you grow, but definitely none of you mess it up, then you get each of them returning a 3x return to shareholders, but you never create Google or Netflix or Amazon. So attitude to risk is the first thing. Risk appetite is the first thing. And then ambition. And here, this is you and me. This is the business builders, the entrepreneurs, the CEOs, the founders. It is just assumed in Silicon Valley, if you're building a business, it's going to be $1 billion revenue business, that everyone in the world is going to use your thing. And we, as British people, scoff at that. Oh, those Americans. And we are wrong. Because if you assume you are going to build $1 billion revenue business, you act accordingly with urgency and brutality and focus, and you don't get distracted, and it's all you do, and you try your absolute hardest to make that thing come true, and sometimes you do. Whereas if you don't assume you're going to build a multi-dollar business, you don't act like that, and you kind of drift around, you do a bit of this, you do a bit of that, you sell it when it's at 10, 50, 100 million of revenue, and no one's ever heard of you again. So I think we have tremendous advantages. I think we have done a good job at making use of them, but the two areas where I see difference on the negative side of the ledger that we should lean in would be attitude to risk and ambition.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it is that kind of fail fast mindset, isn't it? It's okay to fail. You talked about failing when you were 17 years old, right? So you started quite early and you embraced it. And I think it's only through those failures that you learn and you're able to build that $1 billion business, I guess. So, no, fascinating perspective. Thank you. So it does get a little bit lighter from here on in, so you'll be glad to hear. Right. So I've heard a rumour that you're good friends with Anthony Taylor, who is a Premiership referee.
Yeah.
Is this okay?
So let me qualify, just in case Anthony Taylor happens to tune into you and I talking about data engineering. So Anthony and I were good friends at school. And I now, if I'm lucky, would see him once every few years. So I don't want to pass myself off as Anthony Taylor's, Friday night beer partner. But we certainly know each other. We went to school and he's a lovely, lovely man. I also don't know much about football, so I don't get naffed off if he gives my team a red card or whatever.
And as a fellow CEO, I know that beer partners aren't something that you probably have the luxury to do too much anymore.
I don't have any of those.
But does watching him get abused by 60,000 fans every weekend make you feel a bit better about the pressure of being a CEO?
It's a decent parallel. It's definitely a decent parallel, yeah, because being a CEO, I always talk about it as being the knot in the bow tie. So everybody below is looking up and needing serenity, and everybody above, the investors, the customers, the partners, the users, are all looking down, and you're the little knot in the middle of the bow tie. And I can imagine being a ref is a bit like that. I think there's probably a lot more irrationality towards football refs, and it looks like a tough way to earn your living. But what a British success story here is Alti Grammar Boy, like myself and Ed Thompson, very much at the top of his game. So yeah, go Tez.
I can't imagine there's any job that makes you more resilient than being a Premiership referee.
Yeah, well, he was a prison warder for about 10 years first, so that was probably good training.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
he's a good lad.
I take my hat off to him. So finally, I've heard a rumour that you were learning to play the piano. So talk to us. Is it true? And if so, how's that going?
Poorly, but it is true. I hack it out and offend a few cats every Saturday morning when Rachel, our lovely piano teacher, pops around to the house. So it was a pandemic thing. One of my little girls, got 2 daughters. One of them was learning at school. The other one wanted to learn. So we found, I forgot about this. We found a piano teacher online. We knew she was in Britain because she was British, but just found her online and said, "Can you do Zoom piano lessons?" She's like, "Yeah, sure," because it's pandemic, you couldn't see each other. So for about a year, this lady's giving us Zoom piano lessons, and I had a little tripod, a bit like some of these that we're doing our podcast with my iPhone on it, so she could see your hands on the keys. After a while, I was like, I'm sort of sheltering places over now. Like, where do you live? And it was like 4 streets away from our house. And so she started doing the lessons around the house. I don't think I'm a natural musician, but I'm learning to play at the moment. And I could play it now and you'd recognise it. And it wouldn't have too many mistakes. I'm doing Running Up That Hill, Kate Bush, because it got famous again from Stranger Things, didn't it? It's a cool song.
Yeah.
And the good thing about being a grown-up is you don't have to work your way through the grades. So I played all the classical bits in order. You just say to your piano teacher, Rachel, I want to learn to play this cool song. But yeah, it is true. It's going okay. I'm not a naturally gifted musician. Do you play anything?
So I play a little bit of guitar, self-taught again. Just wanted to sort of do it for fun at uni. I'd love to play piano. It is on my list. Maybe one for the future.
Let's get a band going, mate.
Absolutely. We've got a drummer.
Nice. Nice.
Tim, if you're listening, you're on drums. So
we're going to have to find a bass player, and then we're set, aren't we?
Absolutely. I think we might have one of those at Snap as well. So we've got the band. Matillion Snap Band. Here we come.
Awesome.
Matthew, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Pleasure's mine. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for listening to the Snap, Crackle and Pod podcast. Please click this button to subscribe on YouTube. You can also follow us on all major podcast platforms. We're Snap Analytics. We help organizations make sense of data. If you want to find out more, you can go to www.snapanalytics.co.uk. Thank you.